of religiosity as sang about religion. And this is very important because I was just reading Pastor Adeboye, who has just said that he wants to establish more churches so that everybody can have a church within a walking distance. Now, Fela sang about religion and the danger of religiosity as opposed to spirituality. Now, Akadina Okoye has just given a beautiful reply this morning that what Adebayo is talking about are business centers, not religious institutions. Right now, young people who are disenchanted and frustrated with the system are being invited by the most reactionary segment of the ruling class to go back to their ethnic shells, whereas in the drawing rooms of the rich, nobody talks of religion or ethnicity when they want to destroy and steal the wealth of the country. The question of sex is irrelevant. As a matter of fact, yes, all the armed robbers in Nigeria, all the money they have stolen since 1960 has not been up to 191 billion naira stolen by an executive of a bank. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Yes. A lady executive of a bank was charged with stealing 250 billion naira. She pleaded with the government, can I do plea bargain? I will return 194 billion naira. Now, and I'm saying all the money stolen by armed robbers since 1960 has not been equal to that. But
Hello. A new opposition party in Zimbabwe, led by Nelson Chamisa, complained about the conduct of the ongoing by-election in 28 parliamentary constituencies. The Citizens Coalition for Change, led by Nelson Chamisa, blamed the supporters of the ruling ZANU-PF for violent disruption of its campaign and illegal voting. Political observers see the parliamentary elections as rehearsals for a general election planned for next year. Nelson Chamisa established the Citizens Coalition for Change following a split with the long-standing opposition party, the Movement for Democratic Change. In Nigeria, the ruling party, the APC, held its long-awaited national convention yesterday. It was chaotic, but it appears as if the party ultimately survived the exercise. The next test for the ruling party is picking its candidate for president for next year's election. The party must select its presidential candidate in the next 3 months. It is 11:30 a.m. in New York.
It is 8:30 a.m. in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada.
It is 6:30 p.m. in Nairobi.
It is 4:30 p.m. in Nigeria. Wherever in the world you are joining us, welcome to another edition of 90 Minutes Africa. On our show today, we have one of Nigeria's most outstanding lawyers. He's a human rights activist and a senior advocate of Nigeria. There are not many like that. In 2007, he contested and lost the governorship election of Ekiti State on the platform of the National Conscience Party. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Femi Falana.
Mr. Falana, welcome to the show. Okay, he's
quickly correct Shido's intro, I actually contested the election in 2003, not 2007.
Okay, very good.
But like Buhari, I haven't had the courage to go back because the thing has become completely monetized.
Well, that's one of the questions we'll be asking since 2003. What happened? Anyway.
All right, thank you. Well,
thank you.
I was rigged out. That was the year that the ruling party, the PDP, decided to wallop the entire southwest region of the country for the president then, General Olusegun Obasanjo, So we were told that we lost the election. And I quickly went back to my practice. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Chido, go ahead.
Well, no, we were going to get you to give us an assessment of the national convention of the ruling party that took place yesterday. What's your assessment of what we have? It's taking them this long to produce a national chairman for the party. What does this say anything about the party itself and what is likely to happen ahead of the elections next year?
Well, frankly speaking, I'm not going to say much on the outing of the APC or PDP, or both of them. I think what has emerged from that convention, I think the APC, through what was called consensus, has produced largely members of the former PDP to run the APC. The chair, Alhaji Senator Abdullahi Adamu, I think National Vice Chairman, Senator Kenan Amani, I think one of these two emerged. The National Secretary, Senator Iyola Omishoran, and others were members of the PDP who decamped told the APC. And if you recall, in 2014 or thereabout, you had what we call the PDP and the NPDP. So the NPDP or new PDP became part of the APC. But what has emerged now? I think Nigerians have been told that the APC and the PDP are two sides of a coin, and therefore we shouldn't really expect any change. Whereas Alhaji Abdullahi Adamu was a governor under the PDP, a two-term governor. He was also the BOT chair, under the PDP. He was also in the forefront of the dubious agenda for the third-term program of President Olusegun Obasanjo. So, and is currently standing trial for alleged 15 billion naira loot. So when President Buhari said early this morning that the tickets of the APC will not go to highest bidders, one wondered what the president was talking about. If the chair of the party, the post of the chair has gone to the highest bidder, who is standing trial. So what are you talking about? So I think for me, instead of spending or wasting precious time and energies and resources on analyzing the convention of the APC or PDP, for me, I think what has emerged from the APC convention is a challenge to genuine progressive forces genuine revolutionaries and democratic forces in our country to get together and reclaim the lost soul of our country. We should make it very clear in the language of the alternative political movement. We should make it clear that a new Nigeria is possible. So that's my comment on the convention.
Yeah, so I think your statement is well taken. That then leads us to what needs to be done. If you're talking about alternative, your name has been linked to the so-called third force in Nigeria, and there are different meaning to the concept of third force depending on who you're talking to. I hear we understand that Kwankwanso, former governor of Kano State, is one of the frontliners of the third force. First, we'd like to know, what's your take on the whole concept of third force? Do you belong to any third force movement? And how do you think the progressive forces that you mentioned can help salvage the country, take back the country from these two dominant political parties?
Well, I think the concept of third force in the Nigerian political lexicon refers to efforts by some concerned professionals and politicians shortly before the 2019 election. I think this group was led by former NBA president, Olisa Agbakoba, who set up what he called the interventionist force, which later became the third force. I think the concept in Nigeria means any attempt to work politically outside the two mainstream political parties, i.e. the APC and the PDP. But I do not belong to the third force, because as far as I'm concerned, and this was proved in 2019, that it is not enough to assemble big names and declare your intention to challenge either the PDP or the APC. If you are going to have a credible alternative platform in Nigeria, you will need, and we are involved, we are engaged in that. And when I say we, I'm talking of members of the alternative political movement, currently led by Professor Mochey Olorede and Jare Gaskia. We are mobilizing our people. And of course, Awa Mustafa, we are mobilizing our people to work with trade unions, youth organizations, women groups, and other oppressed people, workers and other oppressed people, to see how we can, and this is from the grassroots, wage a consistent struggle, which may not have to do with the 2023 election. Because you cannot limit your struggle to 2023. It has to be a daily struggle. This organization is joining issues with the government on a failure of some state governments to pay the minimum wage of 30,000 naira. We are joining issues with the government on the importation of foul fuel into the country. We are joining issues with the government that claim to have spent 443 billion naira on fuel importation between January and June, only to send a bill to the National Assembly for 2.57 trillion naira for fuel importation between July and December 2022. We are joining issues with the government on the so-called investment of $2.7 billion in Dangote's refinery, which will give the government 20% shares, whereas it is possible to buy, a whole refinery for less than that will refine not less than 250,000 barrels oil per day. So we're joining issues to the government. We are challenging illegal arrest and detention of our people. We are challenging extrajudicial killings in the country. We are solidarizing with ASU, doctors, and other striking workers who are demanding for better conditions of service, for adequate funding, provision of adequate funding for the universities or tertiary institutions, adequate funding of the health sector. Of course, we are also joining issues with imperialist forces led by the IMF and World Bank, asking the government to withdraw subsidies from social services. Why? There is no challenge of the monumental subsidies made available for members of the ruling class who have run some of our banks aground, which led to the formation of the Asset Management Corporation. Today, such people, those who ran the banks aground, are owing about 5.4 trillion naira. The IMF doesn't talk about that. The World Bank doesn't talk about that. But when it comes to subsidizing agriculture, subsidizing education, health facility, Nigeria must not waste money. That's the way the promoters or dogmatic, people in government, and when I say dogmatic, those who have embraced hook, line, and sinker neoliberal economic policies that have continued to pauperize our people and increase poverty all over the country. So it is not an election-based agenda or campaign. It is a daily campaign. If it is possible to have mobilized people sufficiently, and you can contest election in 2023, so be it. But we are involved in the daily struggle of our people.
Thank you very much, sir. And I don't want to take you back on this, but you are a veteran and you know this struggle is all about power. Until my sense is that ultimately, until the people take power, many, if not all of these things you've enumerated can never be implemented. So we'll still go back to
I fully agree with you, but I'm saying that
the question
we are
of power.
interested in political power for sure.
Yes. So how do we deal with that in light of the current situation in Nigeria? Is the question.
We are currently, I mean, the INEC has deregistered many political parties, but there are 18 on the list. There are a couple of progressive political parties in that list. We are engaged in serious discussions. And the Nigerian Labour Congress just held a political conference in Abuja. The Trade Union Congress also held a political conference in Abuja. Both labor centers are sitting down through their political commissions with a view to working together. There are serious discussions at the level of the labor centers to take over or reclaim the Labour Party that was set up as a fighting tool for workers and the Nigerian people. Last year, we held a conference in Abuja, which led to the emergence of the People's Alternative Political Movement. I think there were about 21 organizations, including some radical political parties. So we're trying to work together to form a broad coalition of genuine progressive forces with a view to putting the question of political power in the front burner.
Mr. Falana, thank you so much. A lot of our viewers, someone just said this, and I wanted to bring it up. He said more or less the same story, and if we go back memory lane, and there's something about listening to you and people who could remember when Gani Fayomi was alive, and this struggle has been going on. And you can acknowledge that a lot of our young people, they've given up. They've given up on the Nigerian project. How do you talk to that group of people who have said that people like you are struggling to make things better, but things are not getting better for them, that they want an alternative, a radical alternative? Someone like Omoyele Sowore, or someone like people who now believe that they have to go their own way, ethnic way, as the solution. How do you convince them that we should continue to do the same thing and struggle and hope that we've made progress?
No, thank you very much. I'm not saying that young people, and indeed, because I don't want to be boxed into this business of young people and old people. There are old people who are frustrated. In fact, more frustrated than young people, because they have seen better days. I mean, the talk of my generation. I was talking to my son a couple of days ago, and reminded him, I'm talking of Falana, come. In 1982, when I went for my youth service, I was in Ibadan, and I had a Volkswagen car. To fill my tank was 5 naira, and that would last me for a week or thereabout, and our generation can be said to have been pampered by the Nigerian state. We paid bursary, loans, and so on and so forth. Before we completed our university education, we had jobs waiting for us. So our roads were good, hospitals, were well equipped, likely. So nobody was traveling abroad for treatment in Nigeria at the material time. But our country has collapsed. We suffer from infrastructural decay. It was impossible to talk of the collapse of the national grid. In fact, if at a step up to 1970, in the 70s, if light was going to be, electricity was going to be fixed, and you were likely to have interruption for an hour or 30 minutes, there would be an announcement in advance. So people had seen better days. Security was almost taken for granted. I mean, there were times I was handling a case in Benin involving the late comrade Festus Yayi, Professor Sage, and others. There were times I left Lagos at 8 p.m. in the night, and I would get to Benin around 12 midnight or 11, o'clock in the night. So there was no fear of traveling in our country. But today, the country has virtually, grounded to a halt. So our generation that has seen better days, are regretting. When did the rain begin to beat us? Where did we get it wrong? So the young people who are equally frustrated at their point. But for me, for the NSAS protest of October 2020, I will have been much more despondent. But what the young people did in October 2020 is to demonstrate their organizational capacity and their resolve to ask some relevant questions from the managers of the state. With such an outing, I am convinced beyond any shadow of doubt that the situation in the country will never be the same again. Now, that struggle, even though the state hijacked it, and attempted to destroy the struggle by infiltrating or sending armed thugs to the street. And when that didn't work, the state sent troops to kill some of the protesters. Now, with such deliberate attempt to challenge the state, I am convinced that if the energies exhibited are channeled towards political mobilization, and I know there is already an NSAS movement which meets regularly, which campaigns for registration of voters. And of course, they are asking the question, where do we go from here? I'm happy to inform that they are also involved, many of them are involved in the political mobilization that I'm talking about. So nobody needs to get frustrated. Instead of agonizing, we need to agonize. Don't agonize, organize. To use, a phrase that was common, in Latin America in the 70s. Now, so I'm very confident that we are going to be able very soon to announce the formation of a political party that would largely represent the interests of majority of Nigerian people. And again, we must learn from our history. We must learn from our history. Up to the Second Republic, political parties could be predicted. You could predict where the UPN or the PRP will vote for. What bill they will vote for. What bill the MPN and the NPP or a GMPP will vote for. Today, the line of dichotomy between the so-called, the ruling party and the PDP is destroyed. There's no difference. In fact, I can say it's a difference between 6 and half a dozen. But that is not what we are talking about. We're not talking about defections. You could be in a party in the morning, in the afternoon you are in another party, before night break. You go back to the party, the original party. That's political prostitution, which will not be allowed in the kind of arrangement we're trying to put in place. In line with Section 225 of the Constitution, 224, that party is going to adopt Chapter 2 of the Constitution, because that is the provision of the Constitution, that the aims and objectives of every political party shall incorporate Chapter 2 of the Constitution, which the members of the ruling class, has made not justiciable. But another section of the Constitution stipulates that your party manifesto, your party constitution must embrace that section. So that is the way we are going.
Now, let me follow up with a question that some people are trying to point out. That is that there are some progressives who've been able to get into this government or the past government, and they have not shown to be different from anybody else. Some people are your comrades, some people, like the governor of Ekiti State, for instance, Femi. Nobody can say that looking at his performance in the last 7 years, that he did something different from what any other governor, any other place in Nigeria. So how do you convince the people who are hopeless that there is a progressive group that could come together and do something different? Because they see elements of that progressive group. People can even say that there was a time that Bola Tinubu was a progressive, but nobody can pick him today and both say he's a progressive in Nigeria. How do you answer people who are worried about this kind of arrangement?
No. What I'm talking about the emergence of a radical political party. I'm not talking of, because the word progressive has become meaningless in the context of our politics. And as I did say, what has happened, what has emerged is that the so-called progressive party, I mean the ruling party, the APC, and the PDP are two sides of a coin. So you can't say that any of these politicians is a progressive. So if that word was loosely used in the past, the activities in government have shown that the word progressive has attracted a new meaning in Nigeria. But on a very serious note, you cannot have a political party, even of the liberal format, without a membership that pays, whose members will pay their membership dues, annual dues, whose members will run the political party. A political party is not a parastatal to be run by the president or the governor of its state. So when the APC, for instance, has handed over the affairs of the party to the president at the national level and to the governors at state levels, that is not the kind of party we are talking about. You must have a disciplined organization. And that is what a political party is about. It must be an organization of the people, not of the leaders. You can't use state fund to run the party. You can't hold the meetings of the party in the state house or the presidential villa. No, those are not political parties. And you cannot ask a president or a governor to decide who is going to fly the flag of a party. That is not a political party. So if the people you say are progressives are operating under this arrangement, whereby the function of the party is tied to a governor or the president, or where a president might be in London, and run the party from there, that is not the kind of party we are building. We are building a party of the people. I did mention to you, we're not building a party of money bags. We are building a party of the masses, where the people who have faith in themselves, where the people who want to run their own affairs. And there is nothing strange here. It's not rocket science to run a political party of the people. We had political party in this country. I remember when I was contesting election in 2003, people showed me letters written to them in the Southwest here by the AG or the UPN, acknowledging the payment of annual dues. And they clear some of these letters. So we must go back to the era of mobilizing the people to have confidence in themselves, to run their own affairs. And we are targeting, those who have been excluded from the political, affairs in our country. How can you, for instance, have a progressive party that will poo-poo or make a mockery of the involvement of women in the politics of the country? So we cannot associate. And that's not the kind of political party that we're setting up. The political party must believe in the people. You must give women that represent more than almost 50% of the population. We must give young people, physically challenged people, and others. We must build their confidence. We must make them to participate in the politics of the country. So, as opposed to public politics of exclusion, we are working on institutionalizing politics of inclusion in our country on the basis of popular democracy, not on the basis of, bourgeois democracy, where money bags would dictate and impose their views on the party.
Thank you very much, sir. I just want to quickly ask on this issue, how widespread is this perspective, this idea of building a mass political party? Is it something?
It is very, very wide. You know, the ruling class parties talk about structure. That is, haven't stolen, haven't diverted public funds to, hold meetings in different states or local governments in the country. We say we are working with workers. And when I mentioned the NSC and the Trade Union Congress, these are labor centers that have structures in every local government in the country. The young people have structures all over the place. And they're also taking advantage of IT, social media, to reach out to our people.
Okay, so
I can assure you there's a widespread mobilization that is going.
Finally, on this topic, talking about widespread structure, we saw what happened. We saw a bit of it during the NSAS protest. The question I want to pose is there a sense in which the current structure of Nigeria, or what some people have referred to as the foundational crisis of Nigeria, can affect this narrative in terms of Nigeria, the question about national unity and what would seem to be like a 1,000 nation and a million, how do you say, destinies? Is there a sense in which the structure and the foundational crisis of Nigeria affects this, what we're talking about?
You see, comrade, the divisions you refer to are largely made up by the ruling class to deceive our people, to divert the attention of our people from concrete problems confronting them. Take, for instance, in the ongoing race for 2023, nobody is talking of a blackout, epileptic supply of electricity. Nobody is talking of bad roads in our country. Nobody is talking of our hospitals that are comatose. Nobody is talking about the ASU strike. Nobody is talking of how Nigeria can reclaim our lost glory in the Committee of Nations. Nobody is talking of exploiting, harnessing the human and natural resources of our country. No politician, for instance, has ever questioned the fact that not less than 10,000 medical doctors, not less than 15,000 nurses trained by Nigeria at public expense are currently servicing the British health sector. Nobody is talking of the fact that in some countries in the Middle East, Nigerians are running their health sector. But when you do this, you are likely to ask fundamental questions. Why is it that about 16 million children of school age are out of school? How do you fund primary, secondary, and university education in our country? Instead of asking these questions, because the answer will unite our people. The fight against poverty, our people will benefit all over the country. So what are they doing? Oh, it is a turn-by-turn affair. It is a turn of the South to produce the president, or the turn of the North to retain the presidency. It's not about the program that the Southern or Northern candidate will run. It is not about the programs that will be implemented by the candidate. That is the difference between what is going on. That is the difference between the status quo and the type of organization we're trying to set up. We're trying to look at how do you fund education in our country? How do you ensure that you have a clinic, a functional clinic in every local government and ultimately every ward in our country. How are we going to ensure that we address the question of our army of unemployed youths? How do we expand the facilities in our tertiary institutions instead of setting up new ones that will poach on the few lecturers in the existing tertiary institutions? So we want to ask these questions. By the time you have addressed these problems, or by the time you pose these questions, many of those who are angry, many of those who are jostling to become the president of our country or governors of state will simply vamoose because they cannot address these questions, which are very fundamental to the task of nation building. So this is a problem. We have not in any way, we have not run into any problems with mobilizing people along the problems confronting them as opposed to the division among the ruling class. Now, by the way, and we're telling our people, those who are talking of religion, ethnicity, and other primordial sentiments have no problems when it comes to distributing oil blocks, distributing juicy positions either in the cabinet or in the parliament. They are not fighting in the boardrooms when it comes to cornering or sharing the resources of our country. But when it comes to voting, they confuse our people. And the more you talk about ethnicity or religion, the more you turn the people away from the problems confronting them. So these are the issues we have to address.
Okay, Mr. Falana, let me take you here. You mentioned several issues. One of them is national grid and the failure of the national grid. And some people will listen to you and they say that if you want to look at the national grid and the failure, it goes back to the Constitution, which sort of have a central system where regions are not allowed to set up their own system so that the whole country will not fail when the central system fails. Now, you're talking about starting a new political movement, and is that going to operate within the Constitution that we currently have, which everybody in the political system, we all agree that is faulty? Isn't that important that we deal with that Constitution first before we deal with other things? Because it's all connected, or is it not?
Well, with profound respect, we do not have a constitution. What you call a constitution, or what our courts refer to as a constitution, is a legal document, which should be better called the Decree number 24 of 1999, signed into law by General Abdulsalami Abubakar, the last military dictator, in the country. It is not a legitimate document, but a legal document, which we had all thought was going to midwife, a civil rule that will ultimately lead to genuine democracy in our country. But for members of the ruling class, all of them, the current decree is sufficient for them. And let me also say this, and this is what I tell those who campaign for restructuring in the air. I say restructuring in the air because the campaign does not take cognizance of all these powers are concerned.
Okay, I think we're having.
Let us be trans. So we are talking of is campaigning for horizontal and vertical restructuring. When these powers are taken from Abuja and they are transferred to the states, At the state level, there must be democratization of the powers. And I can tell you this. So some of these struggles are political, some are legal. Between 1999 and now, not less than 15 cases, either of VAT, cases relating to VAT, value-added tax, seizure of local government funds, control of physical planning, ownership of land, taxes collected by in hotels and other hospitality areas, control of inland waterways, and so on and so forth, have been won. Cases relating to all these items have been won by state and local governments. But those powers that have been transferred to the states through what I call restructuring by litigation have not had any positive impact on our people. So when you are campaigning, and again, to go back to your question, there are items in the exclusive legislative list in Decree number 24 or in the 1999 Constitution that have been taken over by the states. And nobody has complained. If you have your money, for instance, Nigeria, the federal government has been trying to revive the Nigerian Airways by setting up a Nigerian airline. That hasn't been possible. But Akwa Ibom State has one of the best domestic airlines in Nigeria today. Aviation is in the exclusive legislative list. Airports are in the exclusive legislative list. Akwa Ibom, Imo, Delta, and latest, I think the latest one is Anambra states. Those 4 states have their own airports. What I'm therefore saying, if I spend my money as a state government, if I spend my money as a governor, spend the state government money to establish, electricity in my state, there's no way you can compare me to take it to the national grid. I will challenge you because it's not your money. So that's why I say some of these struggles are political, some are legal. Again, I take the federal government sued the state government, the littoral states, with respect to revenue generated from onshore, what you call the onshore-offshore dichotomy. The battle was lost in the court. But then the people of the Niger Delta or the oil-producing communities waged a meaningful political struggle that forced the federal government to propose a bill to abolish the offshore-onshore dichotomy. So, and that is what I mean. Some of these struggles will be waged in courts, others will be waged outside the court. So nobody is going to get to Abuja and say, we are transferring some of the enormous powers to the states or the local government. It's a struggle for freedom, economic freedom. It's a struggle for political control. And the battle has to be waged politically and legally. So that's my position.
All right. We will play a video of you talking about religious issues, and then we'll come back and then follow up with a question. So let's watch.
Thank you.
The spread of evangelism, you cannot commercialize it by renting it out for illegal purposes. So this is the time for our churches. And the spread of evangelism, you cannot commercialize it. There is no law that allows you to take money from the church, invest in business, and privatize it. No, that is against Part C of the CAC, the Kama. And I made this point about 3 years ago, when a private jet bought by a religious leader was used to smuggle dollars to South Africa to the embarrassment of the country. I did say that if you have registered that jet for the spread of evangelism, you cannot commercialize it by renting it out for illegal purposes. So this is the time for our churches and mosques to tidy up their own affairs. You don't wait for the state. It is only in Nigeria where you can take money from the church, money contributed by poor congregation member. You go and set up a university that the members cannot attend, cannot send their children to. It's against the rule of the law of God. It's against our constitution. So I'm going to appeal to our churches and mosques on their own to discipline their own member, take care of their own affairs, and that is the only way the state will not interfere.
Wow, that is the only way the state will not interfere. Let me start the bigger picture. The role of religion. When you were talking about the party you are forming, you said that there's no problem with getting people to understand, to join. But some people believe that there is that issue of religion and the impact it's playing on our youths and young people in terms of getting them to engage in progressive movements like what you are trying to come up with. What is your take on that, religion and the issue of the state involvement? Because like you said here, if things are not changed by the religious groups themselves, that the state will get involved.
Well, the state has already got involved under the Companies and Allied Matters Act of 2020. The state has been empowered, the Corporate Affairs Commission has been empowered to interfere, in the running of all NGOs in the country, including churches and mosques. We do hope that the government will have the political will to implement the provisions of the law. But we have no problem with religion. We only have a problem with the manipulation of religion. I take the question of access to education by our children. Under the Child Rights Act, which has been domesticated by about 27 states in the country, under the Compulsory Free and Basic Education Act, every child in Nigeria shall be educated at the expense of the state from primary school to junior secondary school. That is 9 years in school is compulsory. In fact, it's provided that any parent or guardian that refuses to allow their child to go to school will be deemed to have committed an offense and they can be prosecuted. But that law or those provisions of the law are observed in the breach by the Nigerian state. Some have said, to send every child to school, to adopt the Child Rights Act is against our religion because that law abolishes child marriage. Those who are using religion to promote child marriage, to promote denial of access to education by children in Nigeria, are educating their own children in private schools or private schools at home or abroad. And so we are working on the states. We're trying to find out the states that have refused to adopt, or we already have the number of states that have refused to adopt the Child Rights Act. And we are campaigning in those states to expose the failure of those state governments to adopt the law. 2, I think one of the NGOs, I think Sarah, has just filed an action in court.
Okay. Our guest is the internet is frozen, and we hope to he will reconnect. And just to announce that in 8 minutes, we're going to open our studio and let you people come in so that you could ask a question for directly to our guests. So we will let it open in about 8 minutes or 7 minutes. We also want him to talk about some of the legal cases going on in the country at this moment. For instance, we know that governors and some people who switched parties are facing court actions where they are being told that they have to vacate their positions. So we hope that when he comes back, we will let him talk about those things. Chido.
Yeah, great. We hope he joins us again. There are a number of issues to talk about. You talked about the legal battle going on in the states where some governors have switched parties. We also have the issue of a section of the Electoral Act that a judge ruled should be expunged from the laws. So there are a number of serious hot button issues as far as law is concerned in Nigeria, and I'm sure the senior advocate of Nigeria would help us provide a clearer understanding of that.
All right. In the meantime, let's just play a few videos from what happened at the APC's national convention yesterday while we wait for him to join us.
Okay, so he's back now.
Oh, he's back? All right.
Yeah, we'll play.
My name is Dada Olusegun.
I can't find him in the studio.
I withdraw from nomination for the office of National Youth Leader of our great party. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The great youth.
I'm Honorable Ndoka. I want to say it very clear that I'm not stepping down for the post I want to go for National Welfare Secretary. I have suffered for this party. I work.
Very important. Because I was just reading Pastor Adeboye, who has just said that he wants to establish more churches so that everybody can have a church within a walking distance. Now, Fela sang about religion and the danger of religiosity as opposed to spirituality. Now, Akadina Okoye has just given a beautiful reply this morning that what Adebayo is talking about are business centers, not religious institutions.
All right. If you're just joining us, we are having a conversation with Femi Falana, senior advocate of Nigeria. He's been talking about the political situation in the country and the new political group that he's helping to put together that will address some of these issues. We are expecting him to join us again, but in the meantime, we will open up the studio and let some of you come in and weigh in on some of the conversations we were having with him. If you are following us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube, you can, we are going to post the link and then you can click on it and then come into the studio. Chido. Chido, you are muted.
We're trying to get Femi Falana to join us, but I think you can post, we'd like to hear from the audience. You can post somebody is asking on the chat box, let me post this thing there so people can.
No, I've done that, but you can also repost it.
Link to join. Okay. All right. So we can.
Yeah, Chido. So, what is your impression of his answers today, especially the third force? Because apparently it doesn't look like the third force he's talking about is different from the one that most people are talking about.
Yeah, my sense is that there is still no clarity about what the third force means and what it hopes to achieve. And I was hoping that he would answer the question when I talked about how widespread the third force is. I wanted to find out the sense in which much of its activity is around the Southwest, intellectuals and civil society and human rights activists who have been in the struggle for democracy and human rights over the years have been the one pushing this agenda. And I wanted to get some clarity in terms of how this resonates with people in other parts of the country. And that was why I posed the question about the foundational crisis in Nigeria. Very often we seem to neglect or not pay attention to how diverse Nigeria is as a country and whether we truly as a people want the same thing. And I mentioned this in passing when I talked about we being 100 nation and a million destinies. So it's important that when was it the erudite professor Ali Mazuri who referenced this issue, what he called the exceptionalism of Nigeria. You know, there are certain things that are particular or peculiar to us as a nation. And one is that Nigeria is perhaps the only country in the world where you have the two major ethnic groups having a balance of forces. I don't think, or if anybody knows of any other country, they can mention it. Nigeria is perhaps the only country where you have three dominant nations sitting on a tripod. Other nations, you have one, at most two. So each time you look at Nigeria, you essentially see three countries staring at you instantly in one. So it's always a challenge. There is a difficulty in trying to put all of this into consideration when you're making political pronouncements or you're trying to put in place anything that you think or expect would bring about change in the country. But I see there are people in the room already who should give them time, space to also make their contribution.
All right, Declan. Declan, thank you so much for joining us from Nairobi. You can unmute yourself and give us your impression. I am sure you watched and you okay. Oh, Mr. Falana just joined us again. Declan, you can say briefly your take, and we are bringing him up again.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, thanks. Hopefully he's back. Okay, I see him. So I think Mr. Falana needs to explain to us why this idea for this kind of third force is the right solution for what's going for basically not just what the problems are in Nigeria today, but all of these emergent issues that we're looking at, which I agree are coming from the same source of problems that we have today. As I put in the comments, it seems like when PDP was first established and you had Obasanjo, what he had was this amazing thing in Nigerian history, and there was a lot of hope. But that the PDP has obviously failed us. APC is the same thing, and so what's this third wave? This third way approach. The Nigerian state is basically moribund as far as I can tell. It's a zombie. It was killed at some point in the 70s or 80s, and now it's reanimated into this kind of zombie that all it does is mindlessly kind of consume. And to say what we're going to do is we're going to have a third party, but we're going to have this new party, is essentially remaining in conversation with this zombie. And so why is it that opposed as opposed to something a little bit more creative or out of the box.
All right. He's here. Mr. Falana is here. I think probably he opened 2 browsers, and that's why there was that sound.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes. The idea of, I would say the idea of an intervention. Because if you are, I can't talk about third force, because talking of a third force means there are 2 ideological, political parties. But right now, PDP and APC are one and the same. So, and that is what we are talking of. A credible alternative political platform, not a third force. Now, if you are talking of a credible alternative political platform, as I said, we are going to run the affairs of the country in line with the wishes of our people. We are going to attack neo-colonial control of the country. Take the army and the police, for instance. Our position is that all the forces in our country, security agencies, will have to be controlled by the people. If you have the police command in a state, we must have a body representing various groups in that state that will form the police council, and not the current arrangement whereby a police commissioner is sent from Abuja, almost like a colonial tool, like a British DO, district officer, to collect taxes, extort our people, and attack them. Now, we must have a human rights committee in every ward in the country to address human rights violations. Now, the current political parties are not doing that. So we must, in line with the provisions of their own constitution, chapter 4, we must actualize the rights of our people to dignity, right to life, freedom of movement, freedom of religion and choice, freedom from discrimination, and so on and so forth. So that is why we want to insist that we are not a third force. We want to be a credible alternative political platform, as opposed to the status quo of impunity, of oppression, of exploitation, and that's what is going on now. So for us, we are going to ask questions from those who interfere from outside in the running of our economy, the IMF in particular, and the World Bank. We're going to ask them, where have your policies led our country? To poverty, alienation of our people, exclusion of our people from the government. And how dare you to come to Nigeria and insist that the government must stop funding education, whereas in the West, education is subsidized, agriculture is subsidized. So, and you talk about African countries are corrupt. The money stolen from Africa, where is it taken to? So we must now begin to engage, to mobilize our people, to ask relevant questions. Take, for instance, we are told there is no money to run education in the country. Yearly, annually, over 360 billion naira is earmarked for security of our country, what they call security votes. We are going to ask the IMF and World Bank, where do you have this kind of allocation? Instead of funding the security of a country, instead of funding the welfare of our people, which their own constitution says shall be the primary purpose of government. No, you don't deny visa to these guys. So those are the things we are going to engage the West. Why must we train doctors for the United Kingdom or the United States? To train a doctor costs about $50,000. 50,000 pounds. So how can we allow you, destroy our own hospitals,
allow our own president and government officials to be treated in the best hospitals in the West without asking them, go back home and fix your hospital. So we want to mobilize our people to say, and I think as one of our military presidents said about 1976 or thereabout, that Africa has come of age. Can you just imagine now, we're in trouble over the war going on in Russia and Ukraine. The African Development Bank has just earmarked $1 billion for the production of wheat in Africa. That would have been possible. The IMF and World Bank will have insisted, if we are going to give this money to any African country, you must retrench workers, you must withdraw, funding from education, and so on and so forth. So we want to find out, why is the government taking loans? Why are you not collecting money all the country by multinational corporations operating in Nigeria? For instance, following the judgment of the Supreme Court in October 2018, the federal government came up with a figure of $62 billion, all by 5 IOCs. Now, nobody is talking about collecting the money. And yet they say we are poor. We're going to rushing from the west to the east into Russia, China to take loans. We don't need to ask for take loans. So this is going to be the difference between, our alternative political movement and the current, political system in place, either run by PDP or APC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll just have a few legal questions to ask. We have about 20 minutes to go. We also like the audience to ask questions. You are a senior advocate of Nigeria. In the last 2-3 weeks, there have been really important legal questions, whether we're talking about the ruling on Section 84(12) of the Electoral Act, or the one that says that concerns the Electoral Commission, that says governors who leave their party, the party they were under which they were elected, and join another political party, that they lose that position. Could you help us break this down and understand where we are and what the right political points are, so to say?
Well, the first one on Section 84, Subsection 2 of the Electoral Act of 2022 provides that that section provides that political appointees shall not participate in the primaries of political parties. If they want to participate, they will have to resign from the government. And in order to appreciate what the basis of that provision, I know a governor that has about 2,000 political appointees. I know another one that has 1,000. I know one, I think the governor of Cross River State, announced that he has about 38,000 political appointees. What this means is that if you have a primary, all the political appointees will participate. Left for me, I don't like the idea of saying they must resign. They can go on sabbatical, leave of absence. But the interpretation given to that section by the judge in Umuahia, Federal High Court, is to defer that, is discriminatory. Number one, two, the Constitution has made provision for any public officer who wants to go to politics to just give a 30-day notice with profound respect. The judge committed a grave error in the sense that there are decisions of the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal to defer that political appointees are not public officers or civil servants. Civil servants do not hold their appointments at the pleasure of the president or the governor. They have their appointments covered by law. In fact, we say in law that the appointment enjoys statutory flavor. In other words, if they are removed illegally and they challenge their removal in court, and the court so find that the removal is illegal, the court will order a reinstatement. But if you are appointed a minister or a commissioner in a state and you are removed, so be it. You can't go to court and say the president who appointed me a minister has removed me. And so the court must order my reinstatement. So that is the difference between political appointees and public officers or civil servants. But the court made a mistake of lumping political appointees together with civil servants. But what is the problem? Because when Nigerians talk about, freedom from discrimination, yes. But why do members of the elite only talk about fundamental rights when it comes to a section of the elite, not about the rights of Nigerians? The same thing goes for governors who have been elected on the platform of Party A, who may decide to defect to Party B, even though there is a lacuna in the Constitution, unlike legislators who are asked to resign or be made to forfeit their seats. Those who wrote Decree 24 of 1999, either deliberately or otherwise, did not say anything about the president or a governor, the vice president or the deputy governor, who may defect from the party that brought him to power to another party. But it is said that they have freedom of association. Very good, to defect. But the same Constitution guarantees freedom of choice. In other words, the majority that have voted for you, the majority of voters in a state that have voted for you, take the last one, for instance, Ebonyi, about 393,000, I think 143 voters were said to have voted for the PDP in that state. By the way, by the decision of the Supreme Court in the case of Amechi and INEC, as well as Bawa and Wada and Bello, people vote for political parties. Candidates are flag bearers of the parties. So if you are leaving the party, you cannot go away with the votes. And so that is the point I was making. So the fact that the governor has his freedom of association, to leave a party and join another one, we can't quarrel with that. But you cannot also extinguish the rights of those who voted for you under a particular party. So this is the issue. It was never raised before. Now it is being raised, and I do hope that the appellate courts would vote for majoritarian rule by saying, while it is your right to leave any political party, but you cannot go away with the votes, so that you can go and recontest the election and allow the people to determine their fate. Again, it goes back to programs and manifestos. People are supposed to embrace the manifesto, the programs of a political party. So if they vote for you, and if you look at the ballot papers, the photographs of individuals are not on those ballot papers. It is the logo of political party. It is the symbol of political party. So people vote for political party. And I have given 2 instances in recent time, I think Imo senatorial district, whereby INEC simply declare the APC as the winner of the election. But because there were cases in court, the candidate was not named until the Supreme Court ruled that Dr. Ibezim, as opposed to Senator, I think this one senator, was the winner of that election. And that was when INEC now said, following this judgment, you are the winner of the election. Currently, the winner, the candidate of the APC that won Abaji local government area in Abuja has not been named because the party has a case in court with respect to the candidate. So in law and in practice, it is political parties that win elections and not individuals. Hence, If you defect, you cannot go with the votes. So that's the position. Again, as I said, we must learn to respect the wishes of our people and not the wishes of individuals.
Thank you very much, sir. Just take note of this and you can answer it when you respond to. We'd like to bring in, we have just about 12 minutes to go. The governor of Ebonyi State has said, Governor Umahi has said he will remain governor until May 29, 2023. I don't know your take on that, but let's bring in the audience quickly. If you have any comment or questions, we have Ife Chinwadi. Just 1 minute, please.
No, that's not the person on the person there is Wazobia. Wazobia, can you tell us your real name and where you are joining us from, and the question you have for Mr. Falana?
Charles. My name is Charles.
Okay, where are you joining us from?
So I'm joining you from United States.
Okay, so what's your question?
So what I want to thank you guys for. I want to thank you guys for a wonderful job you're doing. It's a pity we have some, and I know he's seen a lot in our beloved country, and I'm kind of feeling sad for a person of his caliber finding himself in the midst of all these irregularities. So I want to kind of give him kudos. It's not easy, being the odd person among millions of people. So, yeah, more grace to your able, sir.
Thank you very much.
Have a good life.
Thank you. God bless you.
All right. So for those, there are a lot of people who are in the studio. I want to tell you that if you want to join us, please, you will have to have your camera on. We can't put you on if you are not, your cameras are not on. So please, and make it brief, just less than 1 minute. All right, let's put in Onoche is joining us. Onoche, is that Jide? Oh, sorry, Jide.
Yeah,
Jide, how are you? Okay.
I'm fine, thank you so much.
Okay.
My name is Jide. I'm actually
hold on, let's get Falana in again. I just hope okay, yeah, okay, sorry. Let me get you in again. Okay, go ahead, Jide.
Thank you so much. My name is Jide. I'm calling from Maryland, in the United States. So I want to make quick comments. I think I'm going to be coming from a different perspective from everything you guys have said. I think from some of the points, Mr. Falana has pointed out, I think it shows the flaws in Western democracy, basically. It shows that, first of all, that's just one of it. So for the point I'm driving at is that Western democracy is not mutually exclusive to development. That's one thing we need to understand. By the time we realize that,
okay, Jide, you are frozen. I hope you are not in Maryland, Lagos. But Mr. Falana, Mr. Falana, you can take it from here. I think he's pointing out okay. Jide, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back now.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it is most developed countries are developed from the back of developing countries. We talk about colonization, we talk about genocide, we talk about Western expansion, we talk about the monarchies of Spain and Portugal, even the British. Even we talk about the foundational wealth of America is from the slave trade and the so-called globalization from the 15th century. Developing countries that have become wealthy today, that have become very successful, like South Korea, like China, like Singapore, these countries were worse off in the 1970s than Nigeria. So how did they go about it? They had a draconian overhacking plan for development. And it was not under a Western democratic system. It was under a dictatorial system. So regardless of the political system, there have to be a unique ideology and an overhacking national plan for development. In Nigeria, we've not had that because most of the leaders we've had in Nigeria, or the political system, or the people we've had in Nigeria, they are all a bunch of puppets. They are all a bunch of puppets.
Okay, Jide, I like your point, but we have to go. Let him respond to that because we have other people who are waiting. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Mr. Falana, please.
Okay, number one, where Governor Umayu has said he will remain in power till May 2023. Well, I think he intends to take advantage of the very slow judicial system. But under the law, where we are, is that this is a time-bound appeal. It's likely to be sped up, and we hope that in the next few months, this matter will be determined finally by the Supreme Court. So it's not one of those cases that will remain in court, for the next 1.5 years or thereabout. On Western democracy, I fully agree with you. Now, Western democracy is hypocritical. It's built on fraud. If you take the United States, for instance, it's said to be the most developed bourgeois democracy. If you win the general election, right, and as you saw in the case of Madam Clinton, you don't win in the electoral college. You won't win. You won't be pronounced the president of the country. For me, that cannot be said to be democracy. I also agree with you that the slave trade, colonialism, and even neo-colonialism now, are far combined to enrich the West at the expense of developing countries. It's therefore our duty to take our destiny in our own hands. And as I did say earlier, that is what the alternative political movement is all about. If you look at the African continent, only 2 military heads of state for 30 years challenged imperialism, and both of them were killed. Thomas Sankara, and Murtala Muhammad. In particular, Thomas Sankara, up to today, Burkina Faso is one of the poorest countries in the world. For 4 years, he never took a loan from the West. He never took a loan from anywhere. He simply mobilized the people to fix railway lines, to fix broken infrastructure in the country. And at the end of the day, he was able to mobilize the people, to run a country that Africans were proud of. In the case of Murtala, it was the disagreement over independence of the Southern African region and apartheid that led the West to kill him. So they don't want any African to ask questions. But for us, you simply need to mobilize our people. Even if they kill the leader, the people are there to continue policies and programs that will make their lives better. Yes, you are right about the ancient tiger, the fact that they had to adopt some dictatorial tactics. Of course, there is no way you are going to run a country in the interest of your people without looking at certain laws like privatization, which is the transfer of our common enterprises to a few people. If you say no, they're going to say, oh, you're not respecting human rights. Whose human rights? The human rights of the people or the human rights of a few people? So I think this is the issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let's quickly get 30 seconds, please. Onoche, unmute yourself and ask a question or comment in 30 seconds. We have to go in another 4 minutes. Go ahead, Onoche.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Onoche from London. I want to ask Mr. Falana, is it not better we split Nigeria as Yugoslavia did when they had problem, the same problem which we're having now? Because we waste a lot of energy trying to force Nigeria into a nation which God has never blessed to be. What is your take in this position?
All right, thank you. Let's go to Martins and get the questions together, and then he will respond. Martins, can you unmute yourself, please?
Good day, gentlemen. My name is Martin. I'm joining you from Germany. My question is regarding the oil theft issue. Recently, the dock workers wanted to go on a strike. And although my question is, why are dock workers still not allowed to work at the platform, loading terminals? These are the places where oil are being stolen from our country. I'm just surprised that at this point in time that we do not know where our oil are being stolen. My company was awarded a contract to load terminals for years now, and we've been fighting We've taken it to National Assembly. There is a resolution from National Assembly to allow us to do our job. Up to this point, we have not been allowed to do anything, and nobody is saying anything about this. How can IOCs produce our oil and load this oil into vessels? This is not our laws.
All right,
the NPA Act.
Thank you, Martin. We have 2 minutes. So, Mr. Falana, please.
Well, starting from the last one, Martins, I think you should contact a lawyer. The government does not respect the resolutions of the National Assembly. So if you have a contract that is valid, I would advise you to contact a lawyer. But with respect to stealing of oil, it's not rocket science to manage our affairs. Nigeria does not know how much oil it produces. The Minister of State in the Ministry of Petroleum has just said today, it's in the papers, that we do not know the amount of liters of fuel consumed by Nigeria. Whereas, and I'm going to answer him, Director of Petroleum Resources said in 2020, February, and you can Google, we consume 30.2 million liters. A month later, the NNPC said, no, we consume, together with smugglers, 102 million liters daily. That is not possible. That means over 60 million liters of oil are taken out of the country of fuel, taken out of the country daily by smugglers. To do that, you will need at least 2,000 tankers, loading 33,000 liters, per tanker. So where are they? Which route are they passing on a daily basis? And that can only be in the night. So the customs board has said this is not possible. So because we have challenged the government, the minister has now come out to say we do not know how much oil that we consume. So we are going to get them. On what basis are you asking the National Assembly to approve a budget of 2.5 trillion to import fuel for 6 months? And by the way, it's a shame that a leading oil producing country cannot fix its refineries, cannot build new refineries or buy new refineries from abroad and put them together here, assemble them in Nigeria. But what are you doing? You have given $2.7 billion to Dangote. You claim you are investing in Dangote's refinery. So I know what you are talking about. Dock workers are not going to be allowed to do their work because the stealing of oil has the backing of the government. I can tell you this, we did a study, belong to a group of lawyers. We did a study between January 2011 and December 2014, 3 years. We discovered that 60.2 million liters of oil, valued at $12.7 billion, taken out of Nigeria, were not recorded in Nigeria, but recorded in Philadelphia port alone. One port in America. I'm not talking of 10 or 20 ports. I'm not talking of ports in China or Britain and France. So you can imagine what goes on in that industry. The final one, about the unity of Nigeria. People say, oh, let's break it up. When you go to a problem, you broke up. Don't talk about United States of America, where you have, over 30 million people now, and they are different nationalities. That's why the motto of America is A Unum Pluribus. Out of many, one nation as a man. And it is possible for us. I tell people, with a population of 200 million people, that is the largest market in Africa and one of the largest markets in the world. If we control our economy, producing a pencil, you are going to make millions of naira daily. So please, let us think about our country. China, we all talk about China now. China has a population of 1.4 billion people. It's about mobilizing your people to harness the most resources of that country. Ours is one of the richest countries in the world in terms of human and natural resources. Any country that can boast of develop human resources has no business with poverty. But what has happened in our own country? With other countries, can you imagine what has just happened in Ife? It has happened in Benin, it has happened in Ilorin, it has happened in Ibadan. Some people now say you must appoint an indigenous as a vice chancellor. Latin word universitas, global, universal. So you can't turn a university into a village institution. So we must look at those areas that can develop our country. We're all happy when Nigeria was the Deputy Secretary of Finance in America, Treasury, which is like Deputy Minister in Nigeria. We're all proud. The Biden administration has appointed in Nigeria to man a key ministry. But here, we don't want an Ibadan person to run the University of Obama University. We don't want even somebody from Osun, apart from Ife. We cannot develop, but that is what the ruling class here has caused for us. The governor of Osun State did not, all he said was that they should make the protest peaceful. The Oba of Ife, they should make the protest peaceful. Nobody challenged the fact that traditional worshippers, babalawos and others invaded the campus, to plant some, concoction people. The university has been shut down now. It is Sajan time. So please, let us address those areas that can make our country one of the best in the world, where our country can claim a rightful place in the Committee of Nations and not about. And by the way, if you want to break up Nigeria, it's not something you discuss on the internet. No, you have to go to the bush. You don't break up a country in the market. It has to be a struggle, So please, let us get all these things very clear, And we can't sit in the comfort of the West and be talking about Pakistanizing Nigeria. Please, if you want to break up Nigeria, you are invited to come home and lead the struggle for that. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Falana. We really appreciate your contribution, and we hope that when we call you next time, you will join us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
we appreciate your time, and thank you to the audience and everybody who contributed to this edition of 90 Minutes Africa. Please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and other social media platforms on 90 Minutes Africa. We hope to see you guys next Sunday for another lively conversation. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.